Donald Trump, throughout his presidency, said that he was tough on China. That was a talking point for years. Based on your reporting, is that necessarily true?
He was tough on China in certain respects. Instigating a trade war with China was a big deal and something that Trump did to a lot of criticism from Republicans and Democrats. One of the things that you have to consider when looking at potential conflicts of interest is it's not just that everything works so simply, where you make a payment and then somebody all of a sudden is super nice to you in policy. If you're fighting with somebody, it can be just as important to make a payment to that person to have them fight you, say, a little bit less aggressively. And one of the reasons why the rules around this stuff are so strict is because it's very hard to determine how payments like that might influence somebody in a position of power. So we don't know exactly what was going on in Trump's head if this did have an effect. He has said in the past that he loves China because they're a big tenant of his. So we know he knows about it. But how much was he thinking about it when he was enacting policies? And was it influencing him to make any decisions that he otherwise would not have made? It's really an impossible question to ask or to answer, and one that the rules suggest not putting yourself into that position so that then nobody has to even ask the question.
What's really surprising is this wasn't a secret. In your reporting, you recalled Trump said this about ICBC in 2008. We look forward to a long and happy relationship with them. And in 2015, he told multiple Forbes journalists that he would show them the bank and he had, quote, the best tenants in the world in this building. Does this surprise you that he was so open about this when it really raises ethical questions?
It doesn't surprise me much from Donald Trump. I mean, this is a guy who, is very comfortable barging through ethical barriers, and, saying, hey, this is just all standard business. And, a bunch of people, complain and say it's not, and this causes conflicts of interest. And, he just moves on to the next thing. So, one thing that Donald Trump makes him different than a lot of other politicians is that he does do a lot of things that would sink a lot of campaigns and a lot of candidates right out in the open. And people just sort of gawk at it, and then he, moves on. But he has enough support that he can do that, and has done that. Now, maybe that sort of mentality has cost him certain votes as well. That's hard to measure, but it doesn't surprise me that Donald Trump was open about something that other people would view as nefarious.
And let's just talk about this concept in general. You said earlier that the bank extending that lease was weird, and they also left in circumstances that you would call abrupt. Is that normal for a business that size to do that with a lease of a building?
No, you wouldn't expect that to happen. These are strange circumstances where you lease an enormous larger space and then you stay in the smaller one, and it's not clear why, but you apparently are extending for 5 years and then you leave just a couple of years after that. It doesn't really make business sense. It's hard to understand any of that without wondering about whether geopolitics played a role in the deal ultimately, even though it started as something that didn't have Donald Trump as president in mind.
I know initially Donald Trump wasn't a politician when this deal was struck, but did China have any indications that he wanted to make a foray into politics?
Hard to know. I mean, Donald Trump has been talking about getting involved in politics since the 1980s. I guess you could theoretically say that China made a really, really smart bet, imagining that Donald Trump was going to somehow get involved with politics. I think that that's a far-fetched argument. Uh, Nobody thought that Donald Trump was going to be president of the United States in the mid 2000s. This just seems like a typical business deal. What was atypical was that, unlike other members of the executive branch and past presidents, Donald Trump refused to divest his business. And by refusing to divest, he carried this and hundreds of other potential conflicts of interest with him into the White House.